If you want to know how to control the simulation, then keep on watching.
Welcome, everyone, to the Magical Frequency. If you are new here, my name is Chrissy, and I am your friendly pseudoscientist at this point, your simulation theorist. So, if you enjoy all things simulation and just conscious creation, higher consciousness, etc., please make sure to hit the subscribe button. Would love to have you here. And if not, please at least give me a thumbs up so I can hit the algorithm. Let's jump right into this video because this video was actually inspired by another YouTube video. It was MIT scientist says that aliens are simulating our reality from Jesse Michaels, which was an excellently done video. I highly suggest that you check that out. Break down specifically one thing that he had spoken or touched upon in that video, and then I wanted to do an overall graphic of how it all works. I'll use this to our ability to have the maximum amount of fun in this simulated environment, which I believe we are here from the Godhead. Let me introduce my graphic right now. I'm going to be getting close in with you today on this one. It's the Penrose-Hameroff Orc theory, just that microtubules and neurons may exhibit quantum behavior, meaning decision making could involve quantum superposition and entanglement. We look at this picture here, it is neurons. These are like your neurons in your brains, and this are dendrites, and they actually help the connections, the communications between the neurons in your brain. So the neurotransmitter are actually those communications that are going back and forth between these synapse space, if you will. So that's why I have this rectangular box around it, because this is where all potentialities exist, right in here. So as we're making decisions, as we're having certain feelings, as we're having thoughts, we are directing all of these because they are actually sitting in superposition. Superposition means is they are floating in the world of endless possibilities. The exact thing that needs to happen has not happened until there is a conscious observer or there is some sort of participatory motion from our avatar, if you will. So if there's feelings, there's thoughts, things that we're listening to. That's why when you're listening to certain things or you're doing meditations, you can grow your neurotransmitters. This is a scientifically proven thing. So all of these type of transmitters, these communications, are all sitting in superposition until us, the human observer, takes any type of action over it or thought over it. Action can mean so many different things. That can mean the action of meditating. If you're meditating, you could be sending certain neurotransmitters back and forth that would create more of a peaceful environment in your simulation. So these are us, in my opinion, directing chaos to organization. So on this photo, this is another instance of where you see in the electricity traveling through the neurons, and that is where we're having the unseen happen. We don't consciously see this as human beings. We only know this due to microscopes and high-powered lens, other perceptions that we're able to take over the things in our environment. This is happening during the first 7 years of our lives where we're being quote unquote programmed. So it all depends on how you're programmed, on how you see the world around you. A lot of times, certain beliefs, certain indoctrinations, certain religions that have been put on to different individuals very much can control how that synapse is formed in the first 7 years. So if you have very hard-grained beliefs, it is hard to get out of them. And a lot of times this causes cognitive dissonance. And I do want to say that I don't want anybody to have like a psychotic episode, have more control immediately over things to the point that they should be scared or anything like this, because this type of information can put people into a level of psychosis because it's very mind boggling to certain individuals. But what ends up happening is that do end up shifting the simulation with all of this, sending these signals out from your neurons that are chemically affecting the avatar and are sending out notifications, if you will, to the simulation on what should be rendered. This will materialize tangible things or experiences into your reality. Some people may call these things manifestations or instant miracles or just different things that happen that we cannot explain, synchronicities. This is all the simulation shifting in our favor. And I'm going to show you with this next graphic what I'm talking about. This is our avatar. I am an avatar. This avatar has many functionalities. And when we say unconscious, that just means the programs that are running your avatar in the background. You have a heart that is beating, you have blood that is pumping, you have a brain with all of those neurons that I just explained happening in the background. So that avatar is doing that, and you are not consciously controlling that. If you were, you would go crazy, I promise you. And what happens is that it is programmed in a specific way through DNA, epigenetics, and we have, of course, that reptilian side of our brain, which is still animalistic, which is the part of the simulation that is your fight or flight, which helps you have your intuition, be able to not kill yourself in the game. The point of coming here is to have a good time, is to feel all of the feelings, accept them, grow and learn from them, and have this experience that we call life, and to fulfill whatever you feel most aligned with to do. I don't believe our consciousness ever really leaves. We live in this infinite world outside of the simulation. I am pondering perhaps that inside of a black hole is outside of the simulation. As a human race have never even been able to get close to black holes. What if everything inside of a black hole is outside of the simulation? And same for like white holes, it's like blasting everything in. That's the god bodiness outside of this, where it's just basically all what would be mind, and that's that Maya illusion. We are a dream of God. You are a dream inside of a dream. This outside infinite consciousness, this is not a physical thing. This is all mind. This would be the God body head. This is the void, the quantum field, what would be the Akashic record, the history of everything, forward, backwards, middle, whatever. Time does not exist in this realm. And an interesting note here that I wrote is that the word matrix comes from the Latin word which means womb, and it's the birthing of the simulation. And it's all dating back to everything that is historical. I have a graphic that I show in many of my other videos that no matter what thing you speak to me about, I can connect it back to this like theory of everything. And I know there's another gentleman that does that, and I don't know if he has anything specifically quite like this, but just like your idea of how you think everything absolutely works. So no matter what tradition you talk to me about, no matter what religion, no matter what historical text, no matter what document, no matter what alien, no matter what life force, no matter what channeling, it does not matter. I can somehow connect it all back. And I am obviously open to other opinions. I don't think this is the only way, because it's really down to whatever you accept as belief is what you will see render. Our God bodiness, the consciousness drops down into our avatar. And different people have different things that they experience in the simulation. And it may be because you are picking that. I know oftentimes it's brought up, well, how would you have certain experiences? Why would you pick them if you're born into like a war torn country or something like this? But we never know. The game has infinite levels and quests. This could be somebody going into something that they chose to because they wanted to experience a certain thing, or it is just an experience that the simulation wants to have as data. The universe at large wants to have a certain experience and not to judge that experience as good or bad. If Matrix is a neutral thing, it just reads off of energetic patterns, the electromagnetic whatever that is going on. It's all very based in patterns. Electricity has a lot to play here into our avatar. And this is why I have the chakras here, because it's all electrical in nature, because the chakras all play into this avatar as well. Are essentially a hologram that is projecting through this avatar in our Earth simulation. And in our avatar, we have that, what I said earlier, that emotional or that energetic field surrounding us that is built based on our ongoing energetic pattern or frequency, whatever you want to call it. And this is all your feelings, emotions, reactions to things, your imagination, stories that you tell yourself, actions that you take, decisions that you make, thoughts that you have, just ongoing stories, inner dialogue, all that good stuff that we constantly have in here is always emitting to the simulation at large. And then, based on what we are observing and letting out, the observation renders in this Earth environment. We are collapsing that wave function that I talked about earlier in those neurons. And this ties back to the double slit experiment. It's the same concept where the observer looks upon the experiment and the particles behave differently. It's all the same type of idea. And here enters my specific or unique theory about the checkerboard. If you rub your eyes, you will create things that are called phosphenes. And these phosphenes can create very interesting patterns, psychedelic in nature, very similar to taking any type of hallucinogen. If you do it in such a way, it will create many different patterns. And a very typical one for me is a checkerboard pattern. That is how we are holographically seeing this entire universe through light entering this. And we all have that third eye that connects us back to the quantum field, back to God. We all have this. This is not unique. We all have gifts as well, like all the clairs, clairvoyance, all of these different abilities that we have to tap into them with our third eye, because we are technically source or God. It's just God having an experience in the simulation. So you can tap into those things and have the ability to have sight over entanglement when you can read people's minds. What's happening is that when you lay observation over something and make a determination in your mind, like a thought, for example, you end up splitting into different timelines. The more you radiate on certain frequencies, and your body does radiate on frequencies, this is a proven thing down to our smallest molecular structure. We do vibrate. Our bodies are held together. And if we didn't have certain things holding all of our atoms together, we would fall into the quantum soup, if you will, being timelines that would be in alignment with whatever you're trying to create in this reality. And that is the multiverse, or like multiple timelines. And this all can be done or equated with mathematics. Why we have the checkerboard pattern. It's just easy. It feels right? We see checkerboards everywhere. 2D being able to start to project into our 3D environment, get into the frequency and vibrate and do all that good stuff isn't just something that is woo or pseudoscience. It actually can be used practically, and we understand how to wield it. To say that we attract terrible things to ourselves, I definitely don't want to go down that avenue. But I think that with prolonged emotional frequency, and again, you can measure emotions, you can measure what lights up in the brain during certain thoughts, you can take measurements of muscle reactions, you can take measurements of so many different things, and I'm sure they'll discover more things to be able to take measurements of emotion. At this point, they're coming out where AI is now able to potentially read your thoughts, which makes it very mechanical in nature due to the fact that you are lighting up very specific spots in your brain when you're having certain emotional reactions or thinking certain things. So, what happens is when you're in those frequencies of those lower things, it's what I consider you being stuck in the matrix. That's when you're in fear and scarcity. And this is a real thing in the avatar. The avatar will create cortisol and you will feel not good. The cortisol will build up. You will get other ailments in your avatar due to this. So it is very important that you keep yourself in a neutral level so to not build up those specific things, because those are really only necessary in fight or flight situations. And if you are in a constant state of fight or flight, you can never feel the feeling of when you're, say, glitching the simulation, where you start to see things like synchronicities. You're making different choices. You're not making choices based on fear. You're actually making choices because they feel good to you, because they feel as though they're in alignment with why you came down here. Down here, if you're constantly in fight or flight, you're not really addressing your psychological needs. Here we have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then we have the scale of consciousness, and then here is another scale that actually blows up all of the different emotions, and I'm sure there's way more that we could potentially have, but how they could fall into a potential scale or a vibratory level that we're radiating at. If we are thinking about hatred and negative things all the times, that does produce a certain frequency, or it lights up a certain part of the brain. And this will keep you in this lower area. Get out of this. There's so many different ways to do this. You, again, start to make different choices, start to make choices that are in alignment with what you want to do in life. And then there's other obvious techniques like meditation, different hypnosis, different, there's infinite techniques that you can use and reprogram your subconscious mind. I believe that that is a thing that you can do, but I also believe that you can just claim a clean mind and that you're like born again, or that you're suddenly source, and that you can move forward and not have to think about any of the past, and you can create whatever type of reality moving forward with these new principles that you understand, forgetting totally about any of the old type of paradigms that we previously lived under. You suddenly start to feel that things are possible. You'll start to see glitches, and top of the scale is that love frequency. And everybody always likes to say that love is the highest frequency. It is the reason for all of our existence, because God loves us and wants us to come down here and play in the playground of earth. So we master the simulation at that point, where you find oneness in everything. You realize that we are all vibratory in nature, that everything is being held together by this love, if you will. And you see ongoing, quote unquote, manifestations, synchronicities. The simulation is always seeming to shift in your favor. You get things very quickly. I have so many random stories. Like the other day, I was thinking about some baking soda, and I wanted to buy multiple boxes of it, but they said it would take multiple days to ship. Ended up picking just a small 98-cent box of baking soda, and lo and behold, when it arrived, I got the 2 huge baking sodas that I originally wanted and didn't have to pay for them, and they just came. So I believe that was because I was sitting in that superposition while I was observing that shopping experience, and I was able to collapse the reality where I would obtain those boxes of baking soda. And this happens to me all the time. And to me, 4 days ago at the supermarket, I picked up a bottle of nail polish that is usually expensive. I didn't know exactly how much it would be, but usually these nail polishes can be over $10. But I was observing it at the supermarket and said I didn't really want to pay that, but oh well, whatever, and threw it in the cart. And when I rang it out, it was not able to be rung out, and the cashier rang it out for me for $5. So I ended up getting that nail polish for $5. And I believe it's in this momentum here where you are observing something, making decisions and thoughts in your mind about what will happen, and all of those things are in superposition. And once you take that observation over those things and make decisions or have internal wants and let out these frequencies to the simulation was like, okay, you can have the nail polish for $5 then. Or, okay, you wanted those boxes of baking soda and you didn't think that you could have them because it wasn't possible, but you really wanted them. So boom, here they are. Just ways that it works and is not predictable, because the simulation does not want to be predicted. The simulation does not want us to completely figure out how to manipulate these things in superposition down to where every single thing is so predictable that we are at God body status. And don't get me wrong, it feels like people are out here, they can just get anything they want. And I know that you've seen this, are reaching this level of knowingness that they can get whatever they want if they believe it. There is something going on in this here. And if you don't believe in this or see it, I think more science that isn't quote unquote pseudo will be coming out in the future. I also did see that PBS Spacetime was talking about that they found our DNA in outer space. That's true. That would uncover some really interesting things. On to how to mess with this a little bit. I do believe high levels of energy disrupts like time and gravity. If there's a nuclear explosion, there is, in that high level of explosion, gravity gets weirded out, and it happens at a quantum level as well. That's why it can mess with some of the neurotransmitter in the superposition, because at a quantum level, gravity behaves differently. It doesn't always behave the same. So that's why I think things like Kundalini awakenings work, because we are sending electrical signals down into our body, perceived body. We are trying to activate our cells. And what I find interesting about electricity is that it looks very much so like the neurons in our brain. And then when somebody is struck by electricity, you can see that it creates that same pattern. And it's because the universe also, or the simulation, likes to take the path of least resistance. And I think that's where it comes into play, where people say like, oh, you can sit around and do nothing and get things. Where I get where that is, but we do require action. There's action in everything that you're doing. You breathing in the morning and getting up is an action. You sleeping is an action. Everything is action. It all depends on which specific actions you are taking on an ongoing daily basis that would be that message that you're sending out to electrical in nature. And I think that when light enters the eye, that's how we're able to project the hologram. We are all just one big Godhead together, is here for experience, for different experiences. You may have come to this reality many, many times. You may have experienced this simulation many, many times. And there may be other simulations at large that you can explore as consciousness. So it's almost like you're creating nuclear explosions in your neurosynapses when you're doing these different exercises like the Kundalini and all this stuff. And then I think that at some point you get so good at it that you don't have to do all the Kundalinis and all this. You just are able to control your electricity in your neurons to be able to, when you observe, apps that superposition into what you want your simulation to render to you. And people, I think, are slowly starting to understand this. Even Deepak Chopra spoke about simulation the other day on, her name is Dr. Melix. He's thinking that it points to the fact that we're living in a simulation, which was extremely interesting to me. I asked AI to give me an image of what this would look like, and it's just everything from the Godhead, and it's not a person, right? This is just AI attempting to give us a image. This is just consciousness. It's just like this open air quantum nothingness where consciousness exists and it is everything at once. Earth simulation was created so the God consciousness could go out into the world at large and create. Religions point to an example in Catholic religion, God created the earth, Adam and Eve, etc., etc. So we're all down into those avatars. Adam and Eve were the avatar. And all of these are the religions. All the religions make sense through this purview. If you examine our religions, they all point back. This is all hidden in quote unquote esoteric biblical texts and all this, but I don't think that it needs to be any type of hidden knowledge, and it's all coming out. And start to test and play with this for yourself. That is the call to action for this video. Play with these certain things. Understand that you can at night entangle with thoughts that you want to occur the next day. You can think about things that you want to see in your 3D reality, because as you fall asleep, you are entering the unknown, and in the hypnagogic state, you are putting that on record to your subconscious, which is just your avatar, your brain, your recorder, your projector. It is what is connecting us in, able to render it all. You start to mess, if you will, with that programming, you will glitch the simulation out, and the simulation will go the way that you want it to go. This is not for anybody to be scared, to be worrying about their constant thoughts, feelings, and actions. You are not your thoughts. It can pass through that entire graphic that I showed you earlier, and none of it may come true, or it may render in ways that you may not understand or see or think any importance of. It's what your ongoing attention and focus is on, and what your ongoing feelings are. If you're always walking around pissed off and you got something stuck up your you know what, and you're always picturing bad things, more than likely you will see those things render in your simulation. I'm not saying that will be always the case, but in my case, I feel like the more I focus on what I want the sim to show me, it begins to show me. And if I follow my own aligned actions, we'll have even more collapsing of space and time, because space and time do not technically exist outside of the simulation. It is a human construct that we have come up with, are able to finagle with that to a certain degree. Understand that we focus in this state when we're making thoughts. For some reason that keeps glitching out. If we keep making thoughts, decisions, and actions geared towards what we want, we're not focused on other things, and we're not being hypnotized by other things. So when I spoke earlier about at the age of 7, most times we're being hypnotized by school, by TV, by other people. Everybody's trying to tell you how you're supposed to live, what you're supposed to do. Up to you to take control and get out of the matrix, get away from that crap, and go your own way. Do things by the way you feel as though they should live out in your reality, but with the caveat that this is everybody's simulation at large. It is not meant to be taken advantage of or taken for granted. I think one of the greatest emotions you can experience in the simi is the feeling of gratitude towards God for creating the simulation. Be thankful to yourself and fellow consciousnesses participating in the fun of the simulation, and not falling asleep and being an NPC. That can happen too, because you are just so enamored with everything going on around you that you barely live your own life. You're living life by other people's means, or trying to follow other people's avenues or path, and not staying authentic to your own self and living the purpose that you came down here to have fun. And don't be scared that you have to always be in control of all your thoughts. Thoughts get out of control. All you have to know is that you are not your thoughts and that you do not have to associate with them. They are just a tool and simulation to help you render it, to help you get to the next step that you want to see in front of you. If you want certain things in your life, those thoughts would be geared towards those things. And if things happen in the simulation that seem confusing to you, you don't understand why it's rendering to you a quote unquote negative situation. Remember, the sim doesn't care about negative or positive. It cares about experience. So everything that's rendered to you, if you take it in a way that is re-rendering, or that it's going to shift your timeline into something even bigger and better, it will continue to do so. If you take an optimistic look over life, if you are positive, and I don't mean you are happy skipping and jumping and walking around like that all of the time, I mean that you see all possible avenues. You are open minded. You do not think that things will never work out. You are always thinking things will work out. Take this attitude over your reality. I do believe you will see significant changes and shifts in your life. But if you keep viewing it through a very pessimistic view that these things are not possible, your beliefs shut down. You can't see the other possibilities in front of you. I myself have had psychedelic experiences, seen things that were so out of control that it wouldn't make sense otherwise, that this isn't some sort of environment as such, because the way that the brain functions, the way that just reality is all connected. If you go down the avenue and do your own research, you will see for yourself how much it truly all doesn't make sense, but yet all does make sense, that it actually is a simulation. So until the next time, guys, I know you are all going to continue to manifest magic and resonate on your highest frequency. Bye, guys.